What's up, Taiwan? I'm Brossard with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Tensions between China and the Philippines are ramping up in the South China Sea. The latest incident saw Chinese ships blast a Philippine vessel with water cannons. The tactic is being used more and more by Beijing as it attempts to assert its authority in the contested waters. Gov't is in the South China Sea on board a Philippine Navy vessel.
A game of cat and mouse in the contested waters of the South China Sea. A Chinese Navy vessel approaches US and Philippine ships conducting live fire target practice. Coming as close as 600 yards of amphibious transport USS Harper's Ferry and disrupting the exercise.
Harper's Ferry did not continue her firing of the guns because for safety concern of the Chinese vessel.
In a first, these joint military drills, known as balikatan or shoulder to shoulder, are taking place outside of Philippine territorial waters within the country's exclusive economic zone, an area Beijing claims as its own and in which it has been increasingly operating. As this Philippine Navy patrol vessel takes part in exercises, China has made its presence here quite obvious. For days, Chinese spy vessels and warships have been in the vicinity, often within sight of US and Philippine ships. Officers here have been monitoring Chinese movements and warning them via radio to stay clear of the path of the drills. These annual exercises are usually a show of force by the US and Philippines military. But this year, it's also showcasing the strength of the host country's international alliances, with Australian and French vessels also taking part in the drills. It comes as the Philippine President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who came to power last year, promises to take a firm hand against Chinese territorial claims here, standing up to aggression like the use of water cannons by Chinese Coast Guard on Philippine ships in disputed shoals. Marcos wants to modernize the country's military by more deeply cooperating with the United States, a move that not everyone here supports.
The United States provides the Philippines with a lot of options to military modernization, from tactics, training, and procedure to exactly how to deploy all of that new stuff. However, there are also concerns that the United States coming in could potentially paint the Philippines as a target against China.
Balikatan organisers say the 3 weeks of exercises are not aimed at any specific threat. But drills are concentrated in the country's northernmost provinces facing Taiwan, another flashpoint with China, and here in the contested South China Sea. As the world's largest militaries jostle for influence in waterways crucial to international trade, the Philippines is considering how best, and at what cost, to protect its delicate status quo in the face of a rising China. Alex Chen and Rick Lowett in the South China Sea for TaiwanPlus.
A growing number of buildings ruined in last month's Hualien earthquake are facing demolition. But in many cases, it's the displaced residents being told they'll have to foot the bill themselves. Jeremy Olivier has the story.
This building is still standing a month after a magnitude 7.2 earthquake hit Hualien in eastern Taiwan, but just barely. It's been condemned, and while officially displaced residents can opt to have the building fixed up and reinforced, the people who once lived here say that's not a realistic option.
结构技师来了6、7组以上，几乎都认为我们富裕精华应该没办法做成补强。县政府是要求我们自费。
The bill in this case is expected to run up to nearly $2.5 million, too high a burden for many. But the Hualien County government is only paying for the demolition of buildings that are at immediate risk of collapse.
如果说它涉及到公共危险的话，或者是说它已经是非常危险状态，那我们就会考虑要去做强险啊。
But pressure on the government to pay isn't just coming from displaced people. People in buildings next door to ruined structures say they're worried too.
如果说它现在倒掉了，它会把我们这个横梁挤住，整个这样折断之后，我们的住户全部都会垮。
The Hualien County government says it's listening to people who want to demolish and rebuild their condemned buildings. But it says it will have to see how much the cabinet gives in reconstruction funds before it can agree to help out. The cabinet could make an announcement as soon as Thursday, but until then, it's just one more uncertainty in the lives of people this earthquake has turned upside down. Howard Zhang, John Van Trieste, and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Nearly 4,000 workers took to the streets of Taipei, demanding the government uphold labor rights. They're calling for salary increases, better pensions, and more assistance for people working in the health sector. Low wages are an ongoing issue in Taiwan. Although the country has regularly increased the minimum wage, high inflation means actual spending power has gone down. Organizers of the march are pressuring President-elect Lai Ching-te ahead of his inauguration and want his Democratic Progressive Party to work harder to protect workers during its third term in power. First quarter economic growth hit 6.5%, the highest in 11 years. Taiwan's Statistics Bureau says this was driven by high exports with huge demand for equipment for emerging technologies like AI. The government has raised its annual growth prediction to 3.57% off the back of the Q1 performance. But some economists are warning that the super growth may be short-lived if the AI bubble bursts. More and more businesses in Hong Kong are shutting up shop amid an economic downturn. The city was once one of Asia's most famous shopping hubs, but the post-COVID recovery has failed to turn up. Rosie Greninger reports.
The once bustling shopping streets of Hong Kong are filled with vacant stores, as business owners feel the pinch of economic pressures. More than 20,000 companies have deregistered in the first quarter of 2024, up more than 70% from the same period last year. When Jackie Yu opened his Japanese gift shop 12 years ago, the tourist shopping district of Mong Kok was packed with stalls, street food and tourists. But now faced with expensive rent, lack of tourists and a labour shortage, he's been forced to shut up shop and move online.
即係我覺得係一講起我有少少想喊嘅，其實真係，因為咧做咗好耐咧真係好唔捨得嘅，係啊，咁但係咧冇辦法，因為嗰個環境逼成啊，嗰個環境係要你，因為如果你唔將佢閂咗門咧，你根本係冇錢交租。
Despite borders reopening after COVID closures, Yu says his business has been doing worse than during the pandemic. The Tourism Board recorded a 38.9% drop in visitors from mainland China in 2023, compared with pre-pandemic 2019. Mainland Chinese tourists who once chose the city for their shopping needs are choosing cheaper locations in the region. Many expatriates who left during the pandemic haven't returned, while Hong Kong residents are increasingly choosing to travel across the border to the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen, where they say prices and services are better.
And then there are people who travel during holiday to Japan and other countries because this currency makes things cheap for Hong Kong people. But of course, in return, when tourists come to Hong Kong, they will find it very expensive. The services are not that good. It's unattractive.
This week, the city's leader John Lee called for calm about these business closures, saying industries need to adapt and there are newcomers entering the market. But the rise of 4 lease signs on Hong Kong's shopping streets are telling a different story. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's 2 main opposition parties have joined forces to pass a motion calling for a freeze in electricity prices.
立即停止调涨电价，并要求行政院责成相关部会即刻检讨现行能源政策。
An 11% electricity price hike came into effect on April 1st. Despite the show of unity, that change will still go ahead. The new motion is considered a suggestion only. The economy minister says the war in Ukraine has sent energy prices soaring worldwide and that the government is doing its best to keep electricity affordable.
照顾这个庶民，照顾中小企业等等，所以我们台湾电价的调涨的情形哦，我看是全世界仅见啦哈，就是有做不同的情境，做不同的这个调涨方法。
A Chinese ship captain convicted of illegally dredging sand in Taiwan's territory has lost his last appeal. The captain, surnamed Chen, was arrested in 2022 for stealing sand from the seafloor near the Penghu Islands. He was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months in prison. Chen appealed the verdict, but the Supreme Court has upheld the ruling. Lawmakers say these illegal dredging operations are part of Beijing's gray zone warfare tactics meant to tie up Taiwan's Coast Guard and threaten the livelihoods of people on the outlying islands. China's newest aircraft carrier, the Hualien, has set off from Shanghai for sea trials. The Hualien is China's first domestically designed aircraft carrier to use catapults. It's China's second domestically made carrier and its third overall. The Hualien displaces more than 80,000 tons of water and was first launched in 2022. The trials will test the ship's electrical and propulsion systems. A Labor Ministry survey has revealed a shrinking gender pay gap among recent university graduates in Taiwan. The survey showed the average monthly salary of recent graduates in 2023 was around $1,070. On average, male graduates earned $1,130 per month, while female graduates earned $1,040 per month, an 8% difference. That's down from a more than 10% gap in 2022. The Labor Ministry says more male graduates work in higher paying fields such as information technology and engineering. Veterinarians in Taiwan have rescued 2 of the country's endangered eastern grass owls. Our reporter Wesley Lewis looks at efforts to conserve the animals.
A rare sighting, affectionately known as aerial elves, Taiwan's endangered eastern grass owls are fighting for survival. This juvenile owl was found on the side of a road with a fractured leg. Veterinarians inserted a bone splint to treat the injury, then gave it regular physical therapy, which requires putting the bird under.
如果在没有麻醉的情况下帮它做复健的话，它很容易会因为痛然后就反抗，然后这样会蛮容易受伤的。然后如果麻醉下来的话，就是可以好好帮它热敷，然后让肌肉放松，就是它伸展会比较可以伸展到位。
There are fewer than 500 eastern grass owls left in the wild in Taiwan. They face many existential threats, including anti-bird nets near farms and airports, poisoned rats, habitat destruction, and stray dogs. And conservationists have their work cut out for them.
从草鸮遇到的威胁的这些种类来看，其实就可以知道说，要做草鸮的保育是一件非常不容易的事情。它有非常多层面的，可能跟农业相关的，然后也有可能跟开发工业经济相关。
A second mature grass owl was also recently brought to the veterinary clinic with a weak immune system, but it scraped its eye and injured itself when scared by the noise and lights.
主要就是一开始来太虚弱了，就是每天都想说会不会死掉，然后现在比较麻烦的是太激动了，因为就是可能有一点声响干嘛，它就在里面蹦蹦跳，然后容易撞到自己又受伤。
The veterinarians were able to treat the eye by extracting the owl's blood to make platelet-rich plasma, also known as PRP. After a few drops of PRP, the veterinarians stitched up the owl's eye.
就是它溃疡的地方，我们会把它缝起来，就是让它眼皮暂时不要打开，让它去保持里面的湿润度，然后可以比较促进愈合。
Conservationists and veterinarians are working together to protect these precious birds. They have been urging local farmers to not encroach on eastern grass owl habitats. For now, these 2 avian patients are being prepared for re-release, and hopefully soon, they can return to the wild. Joseph Wu and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Now, before we go, come along with us to Venice, where the 60th Biennale Art Show is underway. I'm Philip Brossard. Take care. We'll see you next time.